Hello, and thanks for joining us. This video is part of our How to Become a Specialist series, where we'll be having a discussion with a specialist from each of the 13 different specialties in Australia. We'll find out how and why they chose dentistry as their career, and then what factors made them decide to specialise. We'll also discuss what a typical day looks like for them and any advice they may have for someone considering doing their specialty. In this episode, we're going to look at endodontics, and I am thrilled that Dr Varayini Yoganathan from Northwest Sydney has agreed to sit down and talk with us. I'm Dr Steve Parker, and welcome to Dental Chat. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us, Varayini. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, can you just give us a rundown of your current situation?
Okay, thank you, Steve. Well, I'm currently in private practice. I work as an endodontist. I work out of Australian Dental Specialists. We're located in the Hills in the Norwest Business Park. We have an endodontic facility, periodontist, prosthodontist, and I'm the endodontist there. That's been up and running for about 8 years, and that's how I spend my time.
Yeah, now we're going to talk about your progress right up to that point, but I should point out that I actually consult from your office there, and I actually provide IV sedations for you occasionally too, as we did just yesterday.
That's key. That's key to the services we provide.
Yeah, look, okay, well, that's good. So can you take us way back to young Varayini, before dental school? Where'd you grow up, and kind of what was the story before you actually started dentistry?
Well, I'm Sri Lankan by origin. My parents were both living in Sri Lanka around the time I was born, and lovely place, but unfortunately there's a lot of civil unrest around the time I came along. And because of that, we had to leave Sri Lanka quite abruptly when I think it was around 1.5, 2. And so we moved to Nigeria, which is, again, lovely, but never quite settled there. We later moved to Zimbabwe, and we found our footing in Zimbabwe, really loved it. It was a great childhood growing up with the local community, playing soccer outside after school with kids. And there's always beautiful wildlife and scenery. It was such a magical place. And then just as we were kind of getting comfortable and setting up life there, President Mugabe started to go a little bit crazy over there. And then we had to leave again abruptly. We moved to New Zealand, which was completely a massive contrast from Zimbabwe. Nice, warm, sunny, and this place was like kind of cooler and
it'd be very different. Yeah,
very different climate, and like very fish out of water situation.
And whereabouts in New Zealand were you?
Down south in Otago.
Oh, right.
Yeah, my father's a dentist. He wanted to pass the dental board exam in New Zealand, and so he could practice there. And so we were based in Otago whilst he was sitting these exams. And then we just kind of grew up there because it took a while for him to clear and pass. And then he got attached to the university. So we just kind of grew up in Otago then.
Yeah, so in Dunedin.
Dunedin,
right
yeah.
There. Yes. I know it well. That's where I actually was in 97, a bit of 98 when I did some oral surgery postgrad training over there. Okay, so you've made it into dentistry. Big smiles on young Varayini's face. So how long was the dental course over there? And I assume it was an undergraduate course.
Yes, undergraduate course, 5 years, including
5 years, right.
The health sciences year. So
rightio. So the health sciences plus 4 years, rightio.
Yes.
Okay. And now, how did you find that course?
I would say I was just coming in the way I did. I think I was just so thankful to be there. Like, if something was difficult, I was still there, smiling, giggling, happy to be there. Every day was like, love that.
Oh, well, that's brilliant. Yeah, what a great experience. So you have really good memories of your time at uni. And
great time, like really nice cohort that went through. It's always great when your dad's around uni. I spend a lot of time with him, hang out at lunch together sometimes.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
discuss questions and teeth and cases. And
Yeah, because that's one of the great things about Otago Uni at Dunedin there. It's not like a traditional walled off university. It's just interspersed throughout the town. And
yes,
so you could go to, I remember when I was there, you'd go down and just select a different cafe or, little restaurant to grab something to eat. And it was just a lovely atmosphere. Cold, but lovely. Yes.
agreed. And it's beautiful. I didn't appreciate it enough because I had spent so much time there. But now when I go back, it's just absolutely amazing. So lush and green,
Yeah, you got that. Well, listen, so you got through dentistry, you obviously enjoyed it. Where does the story take you then?
So I went through dentistry. I did pretty well because I was very invested and really enjoyed my time there. Getting into the clinical years when you start seeing patients, really loved it. Like there was a bit of a hunt. Everyone wanted a hospital job. When you start, everyone wants to work at a hospital to get the experience and the mentoring. And so I really wanted the bright lights and the big city to go with it. So I applied to Westmead Hospital and got in, and I was feeling phenomenal about it. And then I must admit, when I got in, I felt a little bit disillusioned with the job, mainly because I felt frustrated. I had learned all these things that we could do to help patients. And then when you work in a system like a hospital system, there's certain limitations to the services you can provide based on funding, which I understand. But it just kind of seemed wrong sometimes to have to, essentially we never offered root canal treatment. Most of the time it was, if it got to that, we're pretty much lightly suggesting you should have this extracted.
Right.
And it just never sat kind of right with me. I was never much of an extractor either, let's be honest. So
that's why you like to save them now, hey?
Yeah. So I said, nah, well, I don't want to keep hanging around here. So I thought, let's go private practice. And I worked for
So how long were you at Westmead altogether then?
I think maybe a year and a half max.
Year and a half, and then into private practice, right?
That's it. Into private practice, you start making some really good money when you're in private practice, which was an added benefit. I was excited. I had never seen this kind of money before, coming from university student beginnings. Completely didn't spend it on anything useful, wasted it all. But it was fun.
Yeah.
And with private, it was nice. We had a bigger range of services that we could offer. But I was also, again, something just didn't feel enjoyable. I just didn't feel like this was my place. I think part of it was you had to do so many things in general dental practice, and you have to do them all so well.
So how long were you doing the private practice before you decided, no, I need to do something else?
I think I was about a year into it and just, wasn't happy. I was like, wow, I went through 5 years of, university, and I don't really enjoy what I do. I make a decent amount of money, but geez, is that everything? And like, I feel like when you're happy, it comes out in other ways. You kind of look after yourself, you exercise, you eat well, all those things fall into place for you. Whereas with me, I was, working like I had a crazy shift, a shift 1 to 9 p.m. at one of my jobs. And I would just sleep until like some ridiculous time, like 11. I wasn't going to the gym, wasn't really looking after myself nutrition-wise, just eating junk food. It's just like, I think it's a symptom,
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Trying to comfort yourself with food and whatever.
Yeah.
So during this time, was endodontic something that you were starting to think about? I mean, when did that first enter your mind that, well, look, that's something I do enjoy and would like to investigate further?
It's funny, Steve. So when I was going through this period and wondering what I should do with myself, I had a word with a wise man, Dad. I was like, I did 5 years and geez, this is not good for me. And he was like, look, you might like, something. If you would just had to do one thing, you might like that one thing. I chose to do endodontics. I was referring a lot of endo out. No one seemed to like it.
Yeah.
Lots of referrals, seemed to always be busy, could never get my patients in to see them. And to be honest, I thought I might enjoy it more than orthodontics, which was the other specialty I was weighing up.
Oh, okay. You're tossing up between those two, right?
Yeah. I wanted to go back to Otago to train because my parents were still based there. I would be looked after well whilst I was studying. And at the time, the head of endo was Professor Robert Love, who's a really big name in the field. So it would have been a great person to go and study under.
Yeah.
I was excited at that possibility. When I got in, I was again wrapped. I couldn't believe it. So I'd done okay on my exams. You know, there's fellowship exams, which they say you need to absolutely nail that. And so when I got called in, I accepted, and that was it. I gave notice to all the private practice.
Is this like 2 years after you graduated? Had you been doing
That's it. Yeah.
2 years, right? Yeah. And then you got it, and so you're doing endodontics back in Dunedin.
That's
at
it.
Otago Uni again, rightio.
Yes, that was a good 3 years.
Yeah. Now.
Enjoyed that the second time around more.
Yes.
More of an appreciation for actually what you're learning. You have a better kind of technique to studying. I used to think studying was you memorize the textbook from start to finish with very little understanding of the concepts of what you were going on. So second time around was very enjoyable.
Right. So how did you get yourself through uni doing postgrad? Sometimes that's very difficult funding wise. I suppose you were probably lucky enough to have family there that you're able to stay with, and they kind of helped, with
that's
everything.
Exactly
right.
What it was. Family helped. I had a little bit of money from my time in private practice. I would have had a lot of money if I just invested it wisely, but I had a smidgen left.
Yeah.
Which was enough really for me to survive, and everything was much easier because I was staying with my parents. The house was paid for and food was paid for, so it was only incidentals really.
Yeah, so you didn't have to do any part-time work going through. You were able to just concentrate fully on the course. Is that how it was for you?
Fully on the course, but at the time Otago did have a little bit of kind of paid work if you were tutoring other students, and not a heap of money, but better than nothing. So, and it's enjoyable to teach and to give back. I enjoyed that. So,
and the 3-year endo course was something you enjoyed again. You obviously found a passion for it. So, okay, we're another 3 years down the track. You're now you finished the course. You got your bit of paper. You're a newly minted little endodontist. So, where'd you go then, and what's the story from there?
Back again to Sydney, because obviously the first time wasn't enough. And I was working in a couple of places. I worked out in Penrith, and I worked in the city as well. So in Penrith, I was working for a specialist practice, which was lovely. In the city, I was working for a corporate dental practice, and I was the kind of the in-house endodontist.
Right.
There. And it was nice to actually have the two contrasts in roles, because with the specialist practice, there was the senior endodontist. There was some mentorship there, and he was a really nice, warm clinician, really lovely guy. But one of the amazing things about being in that corporate practice is there was so much, everything fell on you, because you were the only endodontist there. There was no one to really turn to, hey, I can't do this case, or this is difficult. So you really had to figure it out. And so the problem solving, I feel like it was on steroids, because I had to figure it out.
Well, the buck ended with you, basically.
That's exactly right. And, I think that was one of the things that actually made me want to really become, good at it, because you can't wake up every day and think, God, I'm awful at my job. I can't operate like that. So it made me really want to raise the bar and practice at a high level. So I really do appreciate working at that corporate job. Whereas a lot of people were looking down on it. They were like, why would you? It's like you've sold out to work for a corporate. And I didn't think of it that way. We thought we provided excellent care. The clinicians there that I worked with were really lovely people, and patients were great. And yes, it had the corporate name, but It's fine.
Yeah. So it sounds like you got a heck of a lot of experience there. When did you think about starting up your own practice? How did that come about?
Loved all of the places that I worked, but felt limited in, I wanted to practice a certain way. I wanted, a ceiling mounted microscope in the exact location that I wanted it in. I wanted my nurses to practice four-handed endodontics with me and be trained in that. I wanted to use a cone beam CT, have all the latest gear, and all of these things, they're great to have, but most clinics don't just come with these things naturally. I mean, things like cone beam CT are becoming more commonplace now, but at the time I wanted it, had I gone to a boss and said, hey, get us the cone beam CT, they would have just laughed in my face. First, we don't have the space for it. And second, it costs so much money. So, like you get these little aspirations. I want to practice this way. I want to do it like this. But you can only kind of have it like that sometimes if you do it yourself. And so I started getting this itching feeling of maybe I need to do it for myself. And then I build it the way I like it. And then I can practice the way I want, because
So as the song goes, you want to do it your way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you were singing constantly to yourself.
That's it. Yeah. And so like I don't know if it was foolish, but I foolishly, found this place. I fell in love with it. Like I walked through, it was completely too large for my needs. But I just liked how much sunlight my office got, and I was like, this is the place. I'm gonna get this, and we're gonna fit it out, and this is gonna be a success. And I didn't even entertain the notion that this might not work. In my head, this was fine, and this was gonna.
You foresaw the future. Yeah, you could see it.
Yeah. And so we went ahead, bought this place, fitted it out with all this latest gear. And then it was a couple of days before opening, and it was my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. He has a million friends, and a few of them were over looking at the place. And one of them said, "Oh, so you're opening, in a couple of days. Have you got some patients lined up?" And I turned around and looked at him. What patients? And he goes, "Oh, some dentists around here, right? Like you can get some referrals." And I was thinking, I don't
Hadn't
know.
actually thought about that bit.
Yeah. Oh,
you got the building.
Yeah, but it's a good looking place though.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
Yeah. Then after I had the conversation with this guy, as other people were talking to me, it started ticking at the back of my head. Hey, wait a minute. You're going to have to pay some of this stuff back.
So, some of the realities of being a business owner started to come home to roost.
That's it. And then, then it's one of those things when you realize, look, I actually have nothing in my book. I'm going to need to make this happen because, that's businesses need money. And so we need to start seeing people. We need to start treating people. And the only way to get your name out there, it seemed like, because I was from a completely different country, no one really knew my name here, is to go and introduce yourself and to say, hey, my name's Varayini. I'm a new endodontist here. We've got a lovely practice. And, it was hard because there's a lot of rejection in there as well. Not everyone welcomes you in. Oh, that's great. You're a specialist now. Oh, you've got a cone beam CT. Oh, I'm going to refer to you. No, it's not. It didn't go like that.
It's never easy, of course, because before you come on the scene, they're already got someone they're referring to. So they have to find a reason to refer to you.
Yes.
And they've got to know and understand you. And, but one of the advantages, I think, starting up like that is that you can possibly see people for emergencies or see them quickly and at least offer that. And from there, when you start to get the good results and patients are happy, their feedback goes back and slowly things happen. Is that basically what happened?
That's exactly what happened. So
right, yeah.
Every case that you got, every consultation, it that felt like gold. Like you don't drop the ball, and like everything has to be a slam dunk. Like and you put a lot of pressure on yourself if you want to deliver on that result. Because I'd gone there and I promised, give me a chance. If you give me a chance, I promise, like, we're gonna have a great relationship. I'm gonna treat your patients really well, and you're gonna like what I do. So it made me want to practice at a very high level to
Yeah.
kind of win their trust. Yeah.
Yeah. And how many years ago was that? What year did you start there?
It's 8 years now.
8 years. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And look at your practice now. It's highly successful practice, and obviously doing IV sedations for you. I get to see the standard of care is brilliant, and your staff's brilliant, and you are right about the sun shining through into that place. It's a very well lit building,
It's
and
good.
it's
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah. So you had to go through all aspects of starting a business from scratch. Day one, no patients, and slowly build it up. It's quite a brave thing to do. How long did it take before you started to feel comfortable as though, yes, okay, I've got enough patients to make a go of this?
I honestly I felt like maybe in the first 6 months, I started to see, Now this is going to be something." Like people are starting, like I'm starting to build relationships. We got people that are regularly and routinely referring. And I, at the time that I started, I think I was still working the corporate job like a day or so. And it
Oh,
just got to
okay,
the
yeah.
point where I couldn't justify being there. It was hard to leave because I loved it so much. But once you start thinking, I got to spend all my time here, you know that it's that busy.
Right. So that corporate job was bringing in a definite amount of income while
Yeah.
in the early days, so that, so you could keep, but you obviously reached that stage where, it's time to concentrate full time on your own practice and get
Yes.
that going. Rightio.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, listen, that sounds amazing. Last couple of questions. What's the favorite aspects of being an endodontist?
I'd say favorite aspect always in dentistry is just meeting people. We get to meet
Mm,
so many people during the course of a day, and so many of them have great little stories and pieces of information. They all come from all different walks of life, and I feel like I learn so much from every person.
mm.
And I feel like we're in such like in endodontic such a privileged position where some of the people that come to us are in absolutely agonizing discomfort. And like when you give them that LA and just the relief and the love they have in their eyes to you, like you can't
Yes.
get that in every job. So like I just feel like
Mm,
I'm helping people.
mm.
It's a great feeling to feel needed and to feel valuable. And yeah, it's one of those jobs where you feel like you're really doing some good stuff.
So, Ronnie, to finish up, could you just take us through what a typical day for an endodontist is? In your case, anyway, like you get up, you have a morning routine, what time do you kind of kick off and what time do you kind of routinely finish, and how's the day structured?
Um, all right. Well, usually I wake up pretty early, so I'm up at 4 a.m. Um,
That's
to,
early.
yeah, that's very early. But to get up at 4 a.m., I'm usually passed out by 8 p.m. the night before. So I've got my hours of sleep in. It's just a strangely ordered system. At 4 a.m., have
Uh,
a coffee. I usually like to read articles on what's happening around the world and in the world of endodontics and look at
mm,
case reports. And then after coffee, go exercise. I like weightlifting and yeah, I have a little gym in my garage, so I don't have
okay.
to travel too far to exercise every morning. But I do it every
Mm,
day without fail.
mm.
Like I need to
Okay.
be sick to miss a day.
Well, that's very inspirational.
Yeah,
So, and then brekkie, I suppose, and then off to
that's it. So
the office.
get back in, like quickly get things running for breakfast. I got two young boys, so I need to set up. When school's on, set up their lunch boxes, make sure everything they need in their bags are packed. Um, and then yeah, once everything's packed, everyone's eaten their breakfast, then it's off to work.
Right. And so when you get there, do you have any order to the day? Do you do consults at any special time, or do you just fit it all in as it fits in?
It's all just kind of jumbled in there, fits in when it fits in, when it suits everybody. In terms of a mix of a typical day, probably about 4 treatments, 4 consults, a few reviews in there. There's always an emergency that you need to squeeze in, a
Mm.
couple of emails
Well, talking
answered.
about that, of course, unbeknownst to our viewers, we were going to actually do this interview earlier on today. In fact, we're going to do it during your lunchtime from 12 to 12:30, but just before that was going to happen. You actually had an emergency come in, someone with facial swelling who was in pain, and you've been able to look after them. So we've ended up doing this later at night, and I really appreciate that, because I know that you've worked a long day and you got home and kind of got ready and then straight on here. But so that is kind of part of the typical day of an endodontist, I suppose.
Really is. You just got to be prepared for it not to be the book that you think you're going to have is not the book that you usually have. I'm really fine with chopping and changing now. That's fine.
Okay. And look, finally, to sum it all up, what advice would you give to a dental student or a dentist who's actually thinking of specialising in endodontics? Would you have any kind of words of wisdom for them?
Brilliant specialty. Like, I feel like you can't go wrong. No matter how much technology seems to be moving and rapidly evolving, making life easier for dentists, like endo is always just going to be hard. So I feel like if you can develop a skill set and you can develop a love for it, it's going to be around for a while.
Yeah, well, I've seen the work that you do, and it's absolutely amazing. Well, Varayini, do you have any other final things you want to say? I think we've covered everything there. Are you happy?
I'm very happy. I wanted to say thank you for the opportunity, Steve. I do appreciate it, and I've been really enjoying watching your channel, so I'm excited to be on it.
Well, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you coming on and giving this overview. And I hope it helps anyone who's thinking about doing endodontics, and it's given them a good idea on what's involved. So thank you so much, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe and like. Have a great day. Thanks.